Welcome to another video. Sony Alpha Rumors has reported this week that Sony are potentially looking at developing a new and improved version of their NP-FZ100 battery. Also reporting that a new version would be roughly the same size as the current standard Sony Alpha battery and would fit most of the Sony Alpha cameras that are already on the market. This is pure rumour and speculation at this point, but I wanted to talk about it because I honestly think that now is a great time, if there's any time, for Sony to really look at their power supply system, their batteries. I don't want this battery that is currently out there to disappear unless it can be pretty much this new version that is basically the same size, so that it can fit in as Sony Alpha Rumors report it. Supposedly, this new version, if it exists or if it will exist, would do, and that is again into most already existing Sony Alpha cameras, like from the A7 III to the A9 III. That would be absolutely perfect. I don't know if modern technology means that they would be able to improve the battery vastly, because if you're trying to keep a battery the same size, then typically, unless they've had some kind of breakthrough, normally when people say, oh, they've improved the battery or there's a new, muchly improved battery, you expect to see a larger physically sized battery. But if this is all possible, it would be great. And now is obviously a great time for Sony to do this, because if we look at the cameras that Sony have been putting out, they are high performance, high speed, high energy usage cameras. Again, the A1 and that A9 III. There are lots of capabilities and features on those cameras that use a lot of energy, from the EVF to 120 frames per second, all of the features and capabilities that are inbuilt into that camera. And yes, there are ways we know that of minimizing energy use, putting it, having the Wi-Fi off, putting all the displays off when you're using the camera, so you're just looking through the EVF, so the back display is not on, and all of those unnecessary features that may connect to Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or whatever. Having them off will obviously extend the battery life slightly. It all helps. But certainly, Sony have been putting out these high performance, high energy use cameras, and now would be a great time for them to look at the batteries. And again, if they can take one that's roughly the same size as the current edition and release it, then obviously that would be a great boon to those again who are buying those cameras like the A1 or A9 III, or have their eyes on it, or the or even what releases we will see in the future from Sony. A lot of people, a few videos on YouTube and people talking online about the potential of an A7 V, what that would look like, and different responses to cameras that Canon have just released. So who knows what features and capabilities that Sony upcoming releases over the next few years will be like. And again, with things like global shutter as well, you're talking about more electrical energy. So now could be a really good time if Sony were able to do this, to launch a new and improved version of that battery. I think it would be great. Again, if it's the same size, so you could just put it into, again, like my A7 III, that would be fantastic. It brings me to talk a little bit about batteries as well, because there are obviously options out there for, in terms especially of Sony camera users, that if you've got a camera that uses that NP-FZ 100 battery, you could obviously buy several batteries. I've got 6 in total. I don't use all 6 all at one go or take them out with me. I do lots of very general photography, some wrestling stuff, as I feature on this channel. But I certainly feel that it's good to have a few of them. I take a couple out, maybe 2 or 3, at a time, so I use them over several days. If I've got the opportunity to go out over several days, I will use them during those several days. You can also have battery grip. I do have one which I don't really use, which I really should use more. I could maybe go out about the summer and actually use it a little bit. So you can get a battery grip, so you've got two batteries, so it'll switch from one to the other when the battery is depleted. You also have third party batteries. As I said, I have 6 of the NPFZ 100 batteries. I don't use third party batteries, just a personal choice. Some people will swear by third party batteries for all kinds of different devices, whether it be Sony camera, Nikon, Canon, whatever, or it's a GoPro or some kind of action camera brand, whatever. Some people will swear by third party batteries for those devices. I personally made the choice just to buy the official Sony batteries. There are lots of videos, actually. I looked the other day, there's lots of videos out there about third party batteries for different camera brands and different camera models. So again, some people will swear by them, and I'm sure there are some brands, quote unquote, that are probably better than others. Sony obviously don't want people to really use third party batteries. We've seen things like firmware being released, whether it be with a new camera or a firmware update that will do things like not allow the camera to accurately monitor the energy level of that third party battery if it's used. So you might think that you've got plenty of energy left in it, but it might go off at a critical moment because it's either depleted or the camera reads it as depleted and basically shuts down with that battery change warning. I don't know the technical specifics of it, and I don't know whether Sony, Canon, Nikon, and the like will be able in the future to really just block third party batteries. I'm not entirely sure whether they will. I'm sure they may very well be willing to do it. I don't know whether they would be allowed to legally or whether they are going to do it in the future. I'm not sure. But obviously that's a thing with risk you kind of take nowadays with third party batteries. Not only that how good they are, but also in the future, if you decide to change camera, whatever, and the new one, and the firmware Sony comes out with, Sony have come out with bits and cameras with AI recognition of, this is a genuine photograph, this is an AI made stuff, whatever. And again, the firmware things with not monitoring the energy levels accurately of the battery. So whether we're going to see Sony and the likes being able to block third party batteries, I don't have the experience or knowledge of the industry to say that, but I think as just a general consumer, it is entirely possible down the line that they may very well be able to do that. Again, legally and everything like that, I don't know, but certainly I'm sure companies would probably jump at the chance to do it if they were able to. I know some people make the argument that third party batteries are cheaper, which they are from normally the official batteries, and that kind of keep people in the ecosystem and using their cameras and buying more lenses, etc. and contributes. But Sony, Nikon, and Canon, all that are businesses. They want people to buy their products. So there are options out there in terms currently of especially any Sony camera that uses that NPFZ 100 battery. I think that an improved battery would obviously tempt people potentially away from third party batteries, because obviously you're buying, people tend to buy them because they're cheaper. Whether they're any good or not, again, I don't know. But if you've got a battery that will reach the level of, okay, it's a little bit more expensive, and I understand what Sony Alpha Rumors said, that if there is a new version of that battery that comes out, which won't be the 100, it'll be 250 or 500 or whatever they name it, if that comes out and that's just as good as maybe buying, it's going to be slightly higher price, but if it's good or just as good or maybe even better than buying several of the third party batteries in terms of, it's like the old Duracell money adverts that have been played around the world. You've got several cheap old batteries, and you have to keep switching them because they keep running out. But then you've got the Sony battery keeps going and going and going. If it reaches that stage again, that would be something I think. Honestly, I don't use third party batteries, but it may be a something that would tempt a few people, and maybe rightfully so, to actually pay that slightly higher price for a solid, reliable, and long lasting battery, rather than buying several of the cheaper third party batteries and having to keep switching them again, while the new improved ones might still be having a lot of energy within it. Again, that's why one of the reasons why Sony will want people to keep buying into the Sony ecosystem, buying their batteries, etc. So there's lots of different reasons, and again, each up to their own. Some people again swear by third party batteries. Some people won't buy anything else. Probably there's some that only have one NPFZ battery that came with the camera if they got one with it. So there may maybe people like that and only use third party batteries. But again, Sony's a business. They want people, whether you think of it good or bad, Sony will want people to use their own official batteries. So I think the timing is right for Sony to look at it, and I would hope that this is something that's planned from Sony. I really do. I think it's good that any company like camera company will do this every few years. They will look at. They've got experts. Sony's an electronics company. I don't know who creates or develops the battery. I don't know whether it's in house. I don't know who manufactures the stuff. But Sony, as an electronics company, you think they kind of understand, or at least have some experts that understand power requirements. Especially of upcoming cameras and the capabilities and features that they have, what energy is needed to run them. So I think Sony will probably have the expertise, and I think it's hopefully a planned thing, as I said, that Sony will look at that ongoing, as in, right, okay, we're bringing out these cameras, these are what the capabilities and features of this camera is, this is how much energy it will need, and this is like they did with that NPFZ 100 batteries, because I got the A7 III, which uses that battery, but previously the A7 II was apparently pretty horrible in terms of battery. I don't know, I never used that camera, so I can't really swear by it, but I've seen reviewers, especially when the A7 III came out, that they were complaining about the battery that used then was horrible, and the NPFZ battery is supposedly a marked improvement from the previous one. So it might very well be time to see a marked improvement again in the battery. And again, Sony maybe have the experts to look at upcoming releases and current cameras to see where their power needs lies for all of these cameras, and what they need to do, how good a battery, and how can they improve the battery to serve those needs for the current cameras and ones that they want to be releasing in the future. Because obviously it all comes into the design of these cameras, the grips and everything like that. You have to have the physical space for the battery, so that comes into the design of the camera physical body itself, which is one reason why I hope that, if, like Sony Alpha Rumors says, if there is going to be a new and improved battery, I kind of hope it is roughly the same size, just kind of revised, maybe improved a little bit, again maybe 10 to 30%, because again we normally hear about a much bigger battery life, and it's a physically larger battery. Hopefully maybe we will get a little bit of improvement. Not that I'm hugely tempted with 6 of them already to buy a new improved version, but some people will maybe get into the Sony ecosystem or buying a new camera or whatever, or they feel they need with one of these high performance cameras to buy this new improved battery to get more performance out of their camera. Not always from a final point, I will say that not that Sony really needs to worry about the current state of that NPFZ100 battery. It is a pretty good battery. It's a really good battery, actually. Again, I mentioned earlier, I think I photograph at local wrestling shows I feature on the channel, sometimes just photos and blah blah blah. But I can probably do a whole entire show with like 4,000 photos with just one battery. I tend to switch the battery either interval or maybe before the main event just to refresh the power in the camera. Where I probably honestly don't need to, but I get a lot of photos out of that battery. It's a really good long lasting battery. It's not one, again, that Sony really needs to worry about, that we have a battery out there for these cameras and it's pretty bad. No, it's actually a really genuinely, in my opinion, I'm using it since the A7 III was launched. I got one battery with it, and over time again I bought until I have 6 of them. They're a really good battery, so it's nothing that Sony needs. It's not a kind of area of concern or embarrassment for Sony. They don't need to try and rush out a new battery because the ones they've got currently are horrible. It's just, I think, an area that Sony, hopefully, with just again with these likes of, because everybody is basically concentrating on the autofocus and high speed features of likes of, again, the A1 and A9 III. Hopefully there's an area of Sony in terms of their photography and hybrid cameras. There's a department or some people who are looking in at the energy power supply system, don't know how you term it, but the battery power supply to these cameras, and looking at how they can improve it. Because again, now is a great time. We don't know what kind of releases, what feature and capabilities that Sony cameras coming out over the next few years will actually have. And I don't imagine it'll be a jump to global shutter immediately. I think we will still see mechanical shutters for especially consumer level cameras probably for the next couple of iterations. But Sony cameras are getting better and better. They're good already. Again, I still use the A7 III because I still enjoy it. But certainly, Sony cameras will require more energy. And again, hopefully, this is something that Sony will be very aware of. They seem to be, again, this kind of video sounded a little bit Sony fanboyish, but Sony genuinely, from watching all the reviews of all the cameras and everything, Sony seems to be a really good camera company in terms of addressing issues, looking at the feedback and everything. So I kind of get the feeling that Sony are probably on top of this already. If this battery does come out, hopefully, and I don't think it'll surface honestly before next year. I know we're going into July. This is the first we've ever heard of a potential new battery. Well, again, this is all kind of rumour and speculation, but let's assume, for the sake of this video, that it is true they are developing one, or they are starting to work on one. Probably won't come out until at least next year. I know there's things like the Olympics and everything like that which could probably benefit from that, but it won't be until at least next year. So if somebody was buying a Sony camera, I would say them buy the current battery, and then when the new one comes out, then if you want to buy a new version. But certainly the Sony working on their batteries, making sure that the power supply to their cameras and upcoming releases are taken care of, that their needs are met, is obviously the best thing. Because again, you don't want to have a camera battery that only lasts about 20 minutes odd with the high performance features. You want to drain the battery to be drained pretty quickly. You want a substantially long-lasting, reliable battery, which again NPFZ100 currently are. But I think it'd be a good thing, honestly, for Sony to do this, to look at the battery, see if they can improve it, and we'll see probably again next year if they come out with a new and improved version. Hopefully it'll be tested by reviewers. You don't see, because I will say they've not changed the battery either for a few years either, which might be again an indication it's maybe time to do it. But certainly, if Sony come out with a new revised version, I think it'll make a lot of Sony camera users even more happier.